Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to CSL's third webinar. Firstly, just want to thank everybody for attending these webinars. We think we've had over 1,000 now attend, so we do hope that you found them useful. One of the things that we have been asked about is certification for these webinars, which is something we are going to arrange. Today we're going to cover the CSL Router. One of the biggest challenges that our industry faces today is the threat of cybersecurity, vulnerabilities on end users' IP networks. So back in 2017, we launched the CSL Router. The objective was to provide a safe, secure and reliable connectivity for our marketplace. The obvious application for this is CCTV, but we've got it on access control, we've got it on HVAC, pop-up networks, backup connectivity and also private networks. I suppose the most relevant thing today is the need for remote site monitoring. And whilst we've had challenges around our normal connectivity numbers wise, our routers have certainly gone sky high. So, you know, that's a real hot topic at the moment. So with 6,000 of these installed, you know, they've got to be very straightforward and they're extremely popular because of the simplicity, not only from an ordering perspective, but also from an install point of view. But also important is the billing side. You know, one of the things we guarantee with these routers is there'll be no threat of bill shocks or overage. You know exactly where you are with the billing. So shortly, I'm going to hand over to John Coleman, who's going to give you an introduction of the CSL Router and demonstrate the simplicity to order and to install. And then, as ever, Ian Hardesty will be on hand to answer your questions that you can ask throughout this webinar. So John, if I can hand over to you now.
Thank you, Rob. First of all, thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. So yeah, what I'm going to do on my session here, I'm going to give you an overview of the options available for CSL Router. I'm going to talk to you about the installation of CSL Router, and then what we'll also do is we'll also connect to a camera in a couple of ways. I'm not an expert in CCTV, so hopefully we can get connected okay, and if I get connected okay to it, then I'm sure everybody else will be able to do it using the CSL Router. So first of all, just an overview of the router. Quite simply, we have one piece of hardware that you can order, install and configure in a few different ways. So option one is 4G only. 4G only would be for sites such as temporary sites, building sites, remote sites, places where you can't get on the customer's network because of bandwidth issues or IT manager issues. So 4G only is utilising those options. We also have an option for 4G backup. 4G backup is where we've got existing broadband. We want to utilise existing broadband, but if that existing broadband fails, then we'll switch over to 4G. So first of all, just talking a little bit about the 4G only option. So what we do on the 4G only option is we actually provide what we call dual SIM. So we've actually got two roaming SIMs. So what it means is that the first SIM gives you access to all 4G networks. And if we have an issue with the primary SIM, we then have a failover SIM that will then roam on to all the alternative networks. So similar to the Dualcom Pro product that we did the webinar on last week, everything that we do from a new product point of view will always have multiple SIM connectivity. So we've got 4G on all networks, and then we've got a failover SIM. Each router comes with its own fixed IP address as well. And the really clever part that we do on this is that it's got a fixed IP address. So regardless of what SIM card's actually active, the fixed IP address of the router never changes. So you can always connect back to the CSL router, which is a really clever thing to do. And it means that you can always get back to whatever's connected to the back of the CSL router. When we move to the 4G backup option, quite simply what we're going to do is utilize some existing broadband that's in place. So what we would do is we would take the device that you want to connect to. So it could be an MVR, it could be a camera, access control, tagging systems, all the things that Rob mentioned before. And you would connect that to the back of the CSL router here. You would then take our router and connect it to the customer's existing broadband. What we then do is we do two things. The first one is we create a secure tunnel utilising the customer's broadband, and we then create another secure tunnel using the 4G SIM card. So what we've got is two secure tunnels, but again, on the 4G backup option, we've got one fixed IP address. So regardless of what path's available, broadband or 4G, you can always connect back to the IP address and in turn connect back to whatever you've got plugged into the CSL router. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to talk you through some of the options that we've got available for ordering for the CSL router. So what you can see here, we've got the CSL router with a 4G SIM card. Now, one of the challenges that we have sometimes, installers will say to us, I need a CSL router. We say to them, how much data do you need? And the most common answer is, well, I'm not too sure. So what we actually do is we break it down into viewing time per month. So what we've got here is the dual SIM option here. So CSL router with 4G, dual SIM, 1 gig, £60 connection fee, £15 a month, and 1 gig roughly equates to around 30 minutes per month. That could vary depending on substream quality, etc. But you would say that for a low usage system, it could just be a small unit that wants to do a comfort check on their CCTV every evening for a couple of minutes, and that would fall into that 1 gig bracket. The next option we've got is a 2 gig option, which roughly equates to around 60 minutes a month. We then go to 5 gig, which roughly equates to 2 hours a month. 10 gig is 4 hours a month, and then 20 gig is 8 hours a month. As Rob mentioned before, there's no overage charge. So if you take out a 1 gig option, what we're looking for is fair usage. So that means that we expect a few peaks and troughs in the usage being used. But if you're paying for 1 gig and you're regularly using 5 gig, we'll contact you and we'll then ask you to go up to the next appropriate tariff. But we won't give you a bill for the usage that's occurred before we've asked you to increase it. So that's that comfort net that you need, really. The next option that we move down to is the fixed network. So if you don't want to utilize dual SIM, you can just have a fixed network SIM card, which is Vodafone 4G and Vodafone 3G. And the main difference here is that the price per month is slightly different. So rather than paying £15 a month for the dual SIM, you're actually paying £10 a month for the fixed network. But I'm of the belief, if you want to provide safe, secure and reliable connectivity for an end user or for a monitoring station to be able to connect to, then realistically, we need to be using dual SIM technology. As we move down a little bit further on here, we've got the 4G backup option. So 4G backup, we have 2 choices for you. We've got 4G backup with 1 gig and a 4G backup with 5 gig. So 4G backup with 1 gig is where the customer's got quite solid broadband, so it's reliable. So we're not going to be using the 4G side of it too often. And the other option that we've got is 5 gig. That's where the broadband is less reliable. And as I say, in all of these options, there is no overage charges at all. Just one thing to point out is what you do, you will pay a connection fee. So for that connection fee, we will provide the CSL router as part of the overall service. The router belongs to CSL, so we look after it, we maintain it. So the main benefit for you is that if something happens to that router for the lifetime that it's installed, i.e. it goes faulty, then we'll replace that router for you. So you pay a connection fee and we just provide you with the router as part of the overall service. So next, I'm just going to talk you through the simplicity of installing the CSL router. So quite simply, what you would do is you'll power up the device and then we have this row of LEDs on here. So we've got the power LED. So power is 12 volt DC. The next LED we've got is SIM. So when the SIM light's on, that now means that the SIM is connected to a network. As we move across here, we've got the signal LED. So we've got 2 LEDs here. But if both LEDs are on, it means that you've got excellent signal. If one LED is on, it means you've got acceptable signal. If no LEDs are on, then there's no signal, which means you would have to relocate the aerial or potentially look at ordering a high gain aerial to improve that signal. And then the final LED here is for Wi-Fi. So we do include Wi-Fi capability within the CSL router, but in order to utilize the Wi-Fi side of it, you would need to purchase 2 Wi-Fi adapters. And quite simply, they connect here onto these adapters here. And you can order those from the CSL M2M installer shop that Ian's going to talk you through a little bit later on. And these are screw on the front, and then you've got Wi-Fi connectivity. Just one thing to point out, when you are doing Wi-Fi, if somebody's connecting a mobile phone to it and watching Netflix, then quite quickly you're going to move into that data. So obviously proceed with caution when you're utilising the Wi-Fi side of the CSL router. So when we look at installing the CSL router, when you order one, what happens, you will get a install guide. And this is the install guide here. And quite simply, it's an A4 piece of paper. And half of the A4 piece of paper is actually a diagram. So what the diagram shows is the router and some of the devices that you can connect to the back of it. So CCTV, fire systems, access control, anything that you need safe, secure and reliable connectivity for can be plugged into the back of the router. Over on this side here, this would be the alarm receiving center, or it could be a mobile phone, an iPad or a laptop, or whatever wants to connect to that CSL router. And then in between the device and the monitoring station and the router, sits the Gemini global platform. So quite simply what we do is we provide end-to-end encrypted connectivity at AES 256 encryption, which means that this is extremely secure, extremely safe, and also very reliable. So as we move down the install guide, what you'll see here is that the router has got its own fixed IP address. So the IP address of my router is 10.127.207.210. And what we say is that by default, we will port forward any traffic to 192.168.100.2. So what we do in this little rectangular box here is we put the information that you need to put into the device that's being plugged into the back of the CSL router. So if you've got a camera connected to it, or an MVR, or an access control system, then you would put 192.168.100.2 into the device that's being connected into the back of the CSL router. And by default, we will forward all traffic to that local IP address. So what that means is that we don't have to worry about opening ports for you, because all ports are open, and we will just forward you to 192.168.100.2. As we move down the installation guide here, it gives us information on what we call the CSL Anyconnect Client. So free of charge, with every CSL router, we provide a Cisco Anyconnect VPN. So if you're an installer or an end user and you want to connect to the CSL router directly, then in order to do that, you'll need a VPN, and that creates that secure tunnel from your mobile phone or your iPad or your laptop into our platform, and in turn lets you connect to the IP address. If you're a monitoring station, so an alarm receiving center, they have always on IPsec tunnels into our platform. So they've got instant connectivity all the time. So what this shows you is if you want to install the Anyconnect client, if you're going to install it on a laptop or a PC, it gives you the link. Every Anyconnect client that we provide comes with its own unique server address, its own unique username, and its own unique password. So if you're going to install it on a laptop or PC, you follow this link here. If you're going to put it onto a smartphone, tablet, so iOS or Android, go to the App Store or Play Store and download the information from there. What you'll then do is you'll have your own server address, you'll have your username, and you'll have your password here. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to show you how the Anyconnect client works, and then what we'll then show you is how what we call P2P works, which is where we utilize in the CCTV manufacturer's cloud. So I'm going to show you both ways of being able to connect to whatever's plugged into the back of the router. So what we've now got is the Anyconnect client. So you would use the Anyconnect client if you want to connect directly to the router and in turn directly to whatever's plugged into the back of the CSL router. So in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll press connect. We'll have our username in there, and we will then put in our password. And what this will now do is this will create a secure tunnel from my laptop through to our core network, which will now allow me to connect to the CSL router. So what we'll now do is I'll go into one of the ones I've got set up already. So what you can see here is I've set up a link already, which is to the IP address of my router, 10.127.207.210. Now, at the moment, I've got nothing plugged into the back of the CSL router. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press the link here. And what we're going to try and do is connect to 10.127.207.210. But because there's nothing actually connected to the CSL router at the moment, and we can't see a device with 192.168.100.2, we're not actually going to connect to anything. So what we'll now do is we're going to connect a camera to the back of the CSL router. I've now connected a camera to the back of the CSL router, and what should happen, hopefully, is that we would now connect to the camera that's plugged into the back of the CSL router. So this is what we've got here. So now I'm going to put my password in, and we will log in to the camera. And what I'll also do is show you how I've set the camera up in order to allow me to connect to the camera. As I say, I'm not an expert in CCTV, but it took me about 10 minutes to get all this configured. There we go. Hopefully you can see me on the screen. I never thought I'd see the day when I've got a camera in my spare bedroom and over 300 people watching me. But yeah, there we go. How times have changed. So what will happen here is you'll see that when you're connecting via mobile, we often recommend that you use a substream quality. Substream is obviously better if you're using mobile technology, and it protects you somewhat when you're from excessive data, etc. So I'm just going to talk you through what I did from an install point of view. So when I go into the settings on the camera, and I go into network, and I go into TCP IP, what you'll now see is the local IP address 192.168.100.2. You'll see the subnet mask of 255.255.255, default gateway 192.168.100.1. That's the information that we provided on the install guide that comes in the router. So in order for me to provide end-to-end encrypted connectivity to the camera that's plugged into the back of the CSL router, all I've done is put that information into the camera. I've installed the Anyconnect client, and now I've got safe, secure, and reliable connectivity for my Cctv. And as I say, in under 10 minutes, I've got that up and running. So it's really quick and really simple to set up. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to cover the different ways of connecting to your Cctv. I mentioned before about P2P. So what I will do is go into my phone here. So a moment. And there we go. Okay, so I'm now connected to my mobile phone. So when you're doing P2P, you don't actually need the Anyconnect client, because what happens when you're doing P2P is that the device connected to the router talks to the cloud. That could be HIC, Dower, Vigil, Axis, it could be any cloud at all. So the device connected to the router talks to the cloud, and then the mobile phone or the laptop talks to the cloud, and they quite simply meet in the middle. So we're going to the app here. I do have the Anyconnect client installed on my phone. So you can see here, so if I did want to use the Anyconnect client, all I do is turn it on and I put my password in. But as I've said, we're not going to use the Anyconnect client because we're now going to utilize the P2P functionality. So what we would do now is we'd now go into the Dower app, which is this here. So we go into the Dower app. And what we'll then have is a site that we want to look at. And you can see rapidly, we're now connected to this instantly. So when we're doing P2P, we're not actually utilizing any Connect client whatsoever. So what happens is that quite simply, we provide a secure passage for the camera to come into our core network, and then it breaks off into the internet and then goes to the cloud that it's connecting to. In this case, it's the Dower cloud. But the key thing about the CSL router always is the simplicity. It's very simple and straightforward to install. There's no ports to worry about opening because we do all that port forwarding for you. So by default, when that router comes out of the box, it is totally plug and play. Hopefully that's given you a good insight into the CSL router, into the simplicity of installing it, the options that we've got. And I'd like to hand over to Rob. Thank you very much, Rob.
Brilliant, thanks, John. And as he says, John's a salesman, so he's been able to demonstrate the simplicity of that very well. Thank you very much. Ian, I'm now going to hand over to you to cover the answers to the questions that have been asked throughout.
Nice one, thanks, Rob. So yeah, a couple of decent questions actually what's been coming through. A lot of stuff surrounded by the VPN. So obviously the VPN that's the security. If you buy a router off the shelf today with a SIM card, generally speaking, that's a public IP address that's sat straight onto the internet. So obviously it's vulnerable to hacks. So all our SIM cards sit behind our firewall, and that's why the VPN is required. Another question around the VPN is timeout. So by default, it will time out after 10 minutes. Obviously, we do this for your safety as well, for overusage. Even though we don't charge for overusage, obviously we don't want to foot the bill. So it can be extended, but ideally, it depends what package you was on. So if you said, can you up it from 10 minutes to an hour on a 1 gig package, then we would turn around and say no. So, if it was a 10 gig package, you want it up into an hour or so, then yes, that's definitely doable. And then finally was regarding ordering. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen, and then I'm just going to bring up how you get to the ordering part. So this is our website. So if you go onto our website and you go to the installer zone, and then you go to useful information, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, we have a M2M guide. So here we go. Press view, and everything else is fairly self-explanatory to be fair after. So click on the link, which takes you off to our portal. Go to sign in, and then create an account. You'll then be prompted for your company postcode or company name. I've just put a dummy one in our system. So if I click on that there, it brings up IRH alarms. So if I click on that, ask me to create a new user, and then everything else then is fairly self-explanatory. So your username, your email address, your password, etc. And then when you get to the ordering portal, all you've got your choices of your ARC routers or self-monitored routers. So at that point, you just select which one you want. Obviously, an ARC monitored router. You drop down the box and select which ARC you want it to go to. And the self-monitored one, you just select your relevant tariff. And then you're asked to put your direct debit details in. So one-off is the direct debit details. So then when you order subsequent routers after that, that's all you'll be asked for, is just what you want to order. So your direct debit can be monthly, or you can pay annually as well. And that's it. Back to you, Rob.
Cheers, Ian. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any more questions, but if there is any outstanding, Ian will be staying on the webinar to make sure that they are all answered. So that concludes the webinar today. I think at 23 minutes, that will be a very productive 23 minutes that you spent this week. As ever, there's a poll to fill in that just takes a few seconds. Please, could you do that for us? Just email us at sales if you want the pricing, or you want a one-to-one demo. Any of the salespeople can connect you. Ian's demonstrated how you can order the routers, and any of these demos that we've done this week are available to you on the CSL YouTube channel, both the Pro, the upload, download, and of course the CSL Router one today. And finally, there will be more webinars. We do hope we're getting towards the end of this lockdown, but I think we've got another couple of weeks, so there will be more webinars coming out, so please look out for them. Once again, thank you very much for your time. Speak to you all soon. Cheers.